So you clicked on this video, you saw the title, you saw who made it, and now you're probably thinking, Jesus, another video on Total Drama All-Stars? Just let the goddamn thing die already. But just hear me out. So 4 years ago, your boy here made a 20-minute review of Total Drama All-Stars, and it since has become my second most viewed video on this platform. And don't get me wrong, I'm really proud of that video, but in the 4 years that I made that video, a lot of things have changed. The first one is that Total Drama All-Stars actually debuted on the 10th of September, not the 13th. I think I got it right now. And in the months that took me to do that video, not once did it ever cross my mind to fact check this. And I'm a perfectionist, and if I did this thing wrong, this is enough of a reason for me to redo a video. And the second thing is, ever since I made that video, my English writing and expressive skills have grown heaps and bounds because they had to. Back then, I was in college studying modern languages, and I had just finished my first year. And my first year was actually really easy. However, just a couple of weeks after I uploaded that video, I was hit with some extremely hard challenges in writing terms that I had to learn if I ever wanted to graduate. So having to learn those skills have pretty much helped me express myself better. And had I had those skills back when I wrote that original video, maybe I could have expressed myself a lot better than I did back then. I mean, there was a point in that video that I straight up just started dissing Total Drama Pakiteo Island.
A clearer season villain instead of Scarlet, Max, Sugar, I think.
This is so humiliating!
So I've rewatched Total Drama All-Stars again. I've put together a carefully written script, and here is my final review on Total Drama All-Stars. To be clear, this is just a revamp of my original video, but only the 2 parts. Don't expect me to be saying how would I change Total Drama All-Stars again. If that's what you came into, I mean, just stay to watch. This video took a long time to make as well, okay? So with all these justifications out of the way, let's give a 10-year look back into the Total Drama All-Star season, why it failed, and with the knowledge of us having a new season, and with me having some newer skills on how to write in English. And if you are interested in these skills that I've acquired, I have a whole video on my animation channel. If you are curious, just check it out, okay? Thanks.
Before we see Total Drama as a cartoon, we should also see Total Drama as a competition and a spoof on reality television. And back in 2013, a lot of reality TV series had already broadcasted all-star versions of their shows, like America's Next Top Model, Survivor, The Amazing Race, Project Runway, RuPaul's Drag Race, etc. It's a marketing move on the reality TV department that the producers of these shows have done before this season of Total Drama and after as well. What are some of the reasons to make an all-star season? 1. They bring back people that we've loved and love to hate for a second round at the spotlight, and we as a viewer love that. 2. The desire for us to watch these people we love will translate in the viewing figures. So you see, all-star seasons are something that is very well present in the world of reality TV, and it was alive and kicking 10 years ago. So our beloved cartoon parody had to make use of this wave of success as well, right? Well, they did, but it's not to say that they should have. At least not at that time. You see, all the other shows I've listed had numerous seasons before an all-star season became the focus. Total Drama just had 4 seasons before All-Stars, and only one of them actually focused on half of the cast. The reason why this is a problem is that the original cast has had 3 times more character development than their second generation peers. Add on to this, the fact that the Revenge of the Island cast didn't have much interaction between them to make sure that we have a solid cast to compete against the original. And so we have a premise for a show that is doomed right from the start. How to fix this? Well, we needed to have more time to expand on characters from the Revenge of the Island. Maybe push the other seasons we've had planned first to give us some more room to grow. But in this aspect, there isn't much to do. With just 4 seasons up until this point, it was way too early to write an all-star season. And ultimately, the final result starts being showcased on the characters. But what about the time they had to make this show? Was that any good? So, according to the info on Total Drama Wiki, voice acting for Total Drama All-Stars was scheduled for December 2012. For those unaware, this step is the halfway point of making a cartoon. People write a show, sketch their drafts to set a tone for the show, then the voices are added, and then the animation process is made. It's a hard and long work putting things like this together, and 10 months might seem like a lot of time, but that is not much when the topic is animation. Let us compare that to the fact that voice recording for the first season of Total Drama Island 2023 started on September 2021. Then it might put into perspective how rushed Total Drama All-Stars and Pakitio Island were as seasons. And if you rewatch All-Stars through this perspective, lots and lots of details enlightening the rushed pace of production of the season start to pop out, from animation errors, plot holes in many of the episodes, inconsistency with character actions in previous seasons, among other things. Look at Gwen's eyes. You can't? Oh look, she lost her head there for a second. Now, let's put a pin on this topic, because there is some more I can say on this topic and it involves a specific character with this season, but that rests in part 2. So you see, Total Drama All-Stars just didn't have much reason to exist, not this early into the franchise. Have the season waited longer, have the cast they've worked with had a more balanced share of character development and maybe more production time, then maybe we could have had a decent season. As it was, what could have been a bang ended up being a bong, which will become even more clearer as I show you the next part. I've said it once, and I said it twice, and now I'm gonna say it again. The characters this season are the reason why this season outright sucked. The idea that half of the cast of the season is composed by contestants from Generation 1 and the other from Generation 2 is a problem in itself, because A, like I said, bringing characters back for this season that were popular makes sense as a way of roping us back into watching it, and trust me, that worked for me. But in this sort of narrative that Total Drama inserts itself on, the characters you need to bring back cannot be ones that either have won or have had their stories nicely wrapped up in seasons prior. What I mean is that the winners and runner-ups are not good choices to bring back as characters, no matter if they are fan favorites. And by not bringing back Owen nor Beth, I guess they did this slightly right? So that leaves us with 4 characters from the original cast that are obviously never gonna make it all the way. And with the 3 characters we are left, that could actually be potential candidates to win this season, we have one where her character revolved so much around another character that isn't even here to begin with, which makes her a spoiled choice straight off the bat. But more on that later. This to say, Courtney and Lindsay were the only good choices to win this season. And B, the characters on the Revenge of the Island did not have enough development at that point. Keep in mind, every single character of Revenge were part of the shortest season up until this point. To compare, the character that had least episode appearances out of the 5 characters that made a comeback was Lindsay with 53 episodes, counting special. The highest ranked character from Revenge was Cameron, Lightning, and Zoe, with 13 each. Yes, Zoe counts. That is 4 times less episodes to match the spotlight that the character that had least episode appearances from Gen 1. And this is the biggest problem with the Revenge of the Island side of things. But then comes the issue with the themes that fit the characters. And that is the whole villains versus heroes theme thematic they chose to go around. For Survivor reference, I guess. Even the helicopter thing that they arrive, it was a reference to this. Look, this might come out as nitpicky, but while they've nailed the villainous thing, the hero side is where things get scrambled up a bit. The general definition of a hero is usually a person that does good. someone we find ourselves rooting for. And sadly, neither Mike, Zoe, Sierra, Cameron, Sam, nor Duncan fit the standard. A hero should be seen as one that stands up for itself. Someone that stays firm to its beliefs even against the villain. One that claps back against the villain. Someone that picks itself up from the ashes and brings someone along with them. Someone that commits sacrifices for someone. Did you see where I'm getting? Had they brought back Team Victory altogether, then the cast could feel so much more balanced with heroes. Not saying they should have brought back all the members of Team Victory, because there were members on the Revenge of the Island cast that had some pretty solid moments that could fit perfectly on the topics I've listed. Like, I don't know, staying firm to their beliefs and sacrificing themselves and stuff. This is a reason why I feel this cast just feels so lopsided. It's because the characters they brought back do not feel like they're occupying spots that they should be occupying in the first place. Considering Cameron, Zoe, Mike, or Sam as heroes, it's like calling the mayor or Miss Bellum from the Powerpuff Girls the heroes of the show. That's just not true in any case. The main theme here ends up being more like villains versus innocent bystanders. But now, I've loved so many issues with the overall characters, and there is still a lot more to unpack. As I watched this season, I managed to find issues with every single character. Obviously, some more than others, but since this isn't an in-depth review and a celebration of 10 years of this season, let's go through them one by one, shall we? Lindsay's presence this season was wasted potential in its purest form. She was literally the only character on this show that I could consider a hero, but even she ended up getting snubbed of justice this season. The only positive I can find with this show is probably the fact that since she wasn't here for long, at least she didn't suffer from bad writing like the others. Lightning just feels like the least badly written character this season. I mean, we did saw glimpses of him being a balanced character in Revenge, and here he was just lame, but at least his unbearable personality was punished accordingly. Another example of missed potential is Joe. What could have been a great and entertaining dynamic between Heather and Joe was kinda cut short because reasons? Have to say though, even if her character was missed potential, at least her elimination is definitely the best written this season. Though it must be stated that she had the biggest amount of potential to be the main antagonist this season. Okay. Sam is a character where we start having more problems. As stated in my previous video, the reason why the characters of the most recent season feel good is because they are indeed motivated and acknowledge that they are playing a game. Even if the characters this season do indeed sometimes do this. Sam has two issues. To make it clear, it's really not like I dislike Sam as a general character, but firstly, when he straight up announces that he is not here to compete, that makes us, as the viewer, not feel compelled to root for him from the start. And secondly, it seems like, for the most part, the whole time Sam was there, he was always kind of lethargic, you know? And when a character just has no energy, no drive, and no impressive qualities other than moaning, then your character failed you as a creator. Again, giving Sam the role of hero is like taking the title of hero away from Spider-Man and giving it to the people in the city rooting for him. That's just not fair at all. Okay, so Heather. So it's time to take out that pin I mentioned. Getting back to the topic that this season was rushed, this was something I noticed when I rewatched Total Drama Island last year. But has anyone ever wondered why during this season Heather wears her hair tied up? Could it be she's afraid of having it shaved again? For whatever reason, it's never explained why. Maybe she just feels it goes better. Well, trust me, the reason why she has her hair tied up like this, and this is just my theory, is yet another example why this season just feels so lazily put together. If you look at Heather's original style, you can see that it's just a rectangle. It's easy to draw, but when you have to animate it, her hair is a nightmare. You can see her details in her hair. And in the final product, her hair doesn't even sit right in a line 100% of the time. You can see it in the back of her head, sometimes some lines sticking out. It's so minimal, but now that I've spotted this, I can't look away. So in order to make her comeback, to save time on designing her, they had to give her some sort of new hairstyle. It's a decision that has been hidden extremely well, but it makes total sense. They didn't have to give her that much detail if her hair is designed as a ponytail. The only time we've seen Heather's original art was in episode 10 of Revenge of the Island. And yes, you can find those problems with her design as well. So that chronologically her hair has grown back in All Stars, and she's gonna be animated for half of the episodes of this season, they had to cut some corners, and by designing her like this, they will definitely save some time. This was something that I wanted to point out to the people of Total Drama community, and I want to hear your opinions on the comments below. And this just might be the reason why hair has been different in practically every season, and why so many characters in the future generations have had differently animated hairs. As for her character this season, I mean, yeah, she was interesting as ever, but does it seem like Heather was a bit too dependent on Alejandro and vice versa? The Courtney, Gwen, Heather dynamic of Team Amazon was one of my favorite things in World Tour, and they had 3 episodes to cook something up with these 3. They were on the same team, and yet not much was made. Too busy talking about Alejandro, I guess. It's clear as day, the problem that Sierra has is her obsession with Cody. Without Cody being there, it's like this. This obsession was there in World Tour, and it was indeed the bulk of her character. And even when this obsession was never explained, we see more than that from Sierra this season. We see her skills in basket weaving. I know we also saw them in All Stars, don't at me. We learn her mom is obsessed with Chris and how her mom's obsession has translated it as knowledge to Sierra. Something I can relate because my brother is obsessed with Madonna's music and he has forced me to learn a lot of stuff about this now talentless woman. We see her obsession blinding her and being used as manipulation, showing that Sierra is a bit hot-headed. Sierra's character in World Tour was cartoony, but at the same time felt like it was a well-developed character. In All Stars though, it's practically impossible to watch Sierra without her mentioning Cody. This is a not funny gag that lasts for 7 whole episodes. So if an unfunny joke is gonna be a part of the humor that drives the season for 7 whole episodes, then All Stars failed in the humor part as well. Okay, I don't usually do this, but this video took me a long time to make, and I had to balance a lot of my time, so if you subscribe, it would be nice. I would love to get to the 100,000 subscribers. Please. Thank you. You can go watch my other videos. I never do this. Okay. Here lies one of the biggest problems with this season. Here is a little something about Total Drama. Most of the seasons are usually written without the knowledge that there will be a new season. There is a reason why Gwen and Trent were happy in the very last episode of season 1, and Gwen and Heather actually being civil with each other. Courtney and Duncan getting along nicely after all is said and done. Even Sam being happy how he is with Dakota, even earning a special clip dedicated to how happy his ending was. So whenever they have to make popular characters come back, they have to wreck their brains trying to think of coherent plots pertaining to them. Is there any reason why Duncan and Gwen never sat right with us? Or Duncan never actually looking like a fitting character in World Tour? Well, if it felt weird by the 3rd season, the same strategy was never gonna work for a 4th time. Duncan's presence just always felt hard to digest this season. It's a common narrative thing with Duncan. Don't know how to make him work? Just involve him with the main plot of the season. During the span of this franchise, it happened twice. How convenient. Duncan went to juvie with Mel. What once was a character that only cared about himself, but still feels compassion for someone, is now a character with an identity crisis. The whole thing with him trying to prove he's a bad boy was giving, "I'm not like other girls, I like black and metal" vibes. And if that's your thesis statement for a character, then you screwed up. And Duncan is just the tip of the iceberg, as to just like the animation was rushed, so was the writing of All Stars. Because in many instances, especially regarding the love triangle, you can see that they did not do their homework. In Duncan's case, comes in the form of his jealousy he has with Courtney. It's not characteristic of him to feel this obsessed by her. It just feels so weird to see him being so crazy about Courtney, when in World Tour, when she was clearly affected by Gwenken, he would straight up fling stuff at Courtney. I'm guessing this was their way of breaking Duncan and Gwen apart, even though they didn't really do it nicely. For one episode they break up, and for the entirety that the three members of the love triangle exist during this season, there is never an interaction of them trying to get back together and talking about it like adults. What we like to see is Duncan trying to be a bad guy, liking it really rough guy, with his chest always so I'm sorry. To be honest, the best thing that happened between him and Gwen was breaking them apart. But I mean, remember how emotional was the relationship with Gwen and Trent? Can you even dare to compare them to this? Breaking Gwen and Duncan apart was like a quick fix solution for a problem they've created themselves. Just like the problem involving winners of a season, Cameron suffers heavily from this predicament. Cameron's role in this season was similar to Duncan in that he actually doesn't really have a solid purpose. If you watch episode 1 of this season, you can literally not have Cameron in it, and the season would be the same altogether. During Revenge of the Island, he served two purposes: to help Mike and Zoe and be a cool friend to them, and step out of his bubble to face the world. Both these purposes were completed, so he actually serves no purpose in here, and using him as fuel to boost an unfunny joke for 7 episodes might be even worse. Cameron is literally one of the least funny characters of this show, so having him doing this job feels horrible. In spite of the voice actor change and the codependency on Heather, I have to say that the only character I really don't have anything bad to say is Alejandro. He lasted a fair amount of episodes, and he did so with genuine strategies. The only thing I didn't enjoy in him was him forming that alliance with Mal, and quite literally thrown out the episode after. Like, they spent no time exploring this alliance. It's like it never happened. But in fairness, it felt fresh seeing an antagonist facing the villain of the season, and succeeding many times in doing so. Okay, can we all agree that she got the shaft? I am honestly gonna be brief with her, because what I had to say, I probably have said it at this point. The whole thing with the chart, I hate repeating myself. But even if Courtney was one of the better characters this season, supporting a strong love relationship and a great friendship revived with Gwen, only to have her lost that in a snap, I have to say that even her suffers from a lack of fact-checking from the writers. It's just so weird that Courtney was the most avid supporter of Alejandro in the finale of World Tour, and suddenly she shows no interest in him. An argument could be made that this was because Alejandro admitted that he liked Heather, but nope, this is never stated, ever. And let's not forget the fact that Courtney just can't eat disgusting foods. And all of a sudden, she's afraid of sharks? What? See? No fact-checking here. Okay, just like Duncan, Gwen has the same problem. Her character has shifted so much over the span of these 4 seasons that we've lost track on what Gwen's character is supposed to be. If we were to compare Gwen's actions in All Stars vs. Island, we are not talking about the same character. Her actions could not be more polarizing. Island Gwen would never be the kind of person that would be crying in the corners over someone not giving her attention. Gwen is really the best example of the writers not making their homework, because most, if not all, of her character flaws can be pinned solely on this. First, a refusal to accept that Duncan was dating Courtney, when she outright admits in Total Drama World Tour that Courtney was Duncan's boyfriend.
The moment I finally become friendish with Courtney, I kiss her boyfriend. I am a horrible person.
Secondly, her continuous despair of making friends with Courtney. I mean, reviving this friendship was the thing I wanted most this season, sure. But even during World Tour, there was never an attempt on either side to revive it. So it just feels uncharacteristic for Gwen to just come back on the show to make things right, and this being her sole purpose. Especially when Gwen was really smug on getting rid of Courtney in World Tour. Which gives us another example that maybe the creators didn't really saw Total Drama World Tour as much as they should have. Which leads me to the fact that maybe Total Drama Island was meant to be a sole season thing, not particularly a project that has to be so popular that we had to keep on reinventing characters to make them take part. Her role in Island was concluded in Island only. She had no real purpose on this season, and the worst part is that it shows. So many of her confessionals are just nothing burgers, and she's here for the whole 13 episodes of this show. Okay, Scott just might be the only character that I can consider to be well developed this season. He is a character that had almost no development in season 4 other than being the bad guy. Duh. Here, he was allowed to show emotions, and I enjoy the fact that his strategy changed when he realized that throwing challenges would ultimately mean giving up luxury. And now we get to the worst part of this season. The remaining 3 characters are the sole reason why this season is seen as terrible. I am so sorry, Mike and Zoe fans. That's just the truth. The problem Zoe had this season is how they wrote it as this unstoppable force with 0 weaknesses. Throughout her 13 episodes this season, she quite literally got 0 character development. Every single episode is her doing super well in a challenge, quite literally winning all of them for her team, and when we get to individuals, she's just gonna win almost all of them and that's it. But what exactly makes her such a powerful player? Well, this is never explained. Some of you might play the Commando Zoe card, and yeah, she's physically capable, but what's the point of being this fit if all you do is be on screen, be a goody girl, and not have any other thing going for you? The result is that you are gonna be a boring as heck. The other thing that Zoe focuses on is a relationship with Mike, as if that wasn't already touched and concluded upon over the last season. It's extremely difficult to root for the character that we are meant to see as a hero when this hero is blind like a mole. It's evident that there is something wrong with your loved one, and you are clearly not qualified to deal with this, honey. Zoe's character got 0 character development in All Stars. It's just her winning the challenges and her worrying about Mike. There's nothing else. For 13 episodes. Alright. So, remember how I said I had to learn the ins and outs of language and writing in English in order to graduate? Well, in my 5th level of English, which was the hardest level out of the 6, by the way, I learned a lot actually. And from what I learned in this level of English made me associate that the reason why Mike is such a terrible character lies in the fact that they named this problem. By putting a name on what Mike's condition was, a name that is associated with a real-life psychological disorder, and not give self-awareness to what this condition is, and use it for comedic and dramatic effect, then you are clearly stating that this is more of a joke rather than something serious. Now, I am not saying that cartoons shouldn't touch upon topics like these, but if the premise that Mike is gonna be that he suffers from a severe psychological disorder, you have to do your homework and treat this with care. The road you are walking is a very fine line if that's the road you're taking. Because the way you treat a disorder like this in real life is not to scream for help for a person with this condition, and it definitely won't be you continuing on a game or hitting yourself with a rock, and it will not definitely be pressing a red button. There are several videos on the condition that Mike has that I found absolutely enlightening, and I recommend you watching them too. Mike's character was basically butchered from the moment they tagged him with a multiple personality disorder label. And honestly, had they never actually given him this title, or had they never mentioned that he has a real life condition at all, but still have kept the gimmick of him having these personalities and left this condition be absolutely unspoken, it's safe to assume that Mike's character could have been totally salvageable. There have been numerous animated characters over the years with this gimmick or having several personalities rule the body they are in that have never been stated to have the psychological condition that Mike has, and no one ever felt offended. And it's funny because while rewatching this season, I've noticed that they actually toned down considerably the term multiple multiple personality disorder, instead just referring it to as his personalities. And finally, as for Mal, he has to be the weakest antagonist in the history of this show, and this has been even more clear with the release of the most recent season. The reason why Mal fails as a villain is because he just feels so unmotivated. In order for a villain to fit in the narrative that Total Drama finds itself inserted in, the kind of villain that is purely evil and dies at the end will never work. If this was a show like the Powerpuff Girls that involves the heroes fighting evil, then the character Mel could work as a villain. But in the sense that we have multiple characters with different characteristics that could be both evil and heroic at the same time, having such a dark-souled antagonist with no feelings, no remorse, and be just this soldier of chaos whilst just having two-dimensional protagonists is going against what this show is actually trying to accomplish. And this is even more noticeable when at the end of the season, the focus that this show is in competition just takes the furthest backseat ever for us to see that Mike is stuck in his mind, Zoe not knowing what to do because she's always 100 steps behind Mal, while the other characters have realized this much sooner, and the way that Mal just has no purposes on what to do. Yeah, he's evil because he likes to create chaos, but what's next? What exactly are these evil plans with this million? How can hitting yourself in the head with a rock a second time is gonna help you? Why is remaining in the game longer will be the cause of you getting cured? And for what exactly did you went to Juvie for? How long have you been there? Why hasn't Mike ever mentioned that he was in Juvie? What did Mike do the first time to lock Mal away? So many questions, literally no answers. The end result is that the two characters that remain in this game end up being one character that had literally zero character development and another that wasn't even in the game for half the show. Both winners of this show are complete epic fails in writing terms. They make Beth and Duncan actually look like a good finale. How could we salvage this? And it's quite simple. It's easy for me to talk because it's been 10 years, but had we seen Mal at least locked up inside Mike's consciousness in Revenge of the Island, in like the way that Lisa Simpson's attitudes have done to libido Lisa in a Simpson episode, you know, as a small gag, to really give us some pep to root for this character to break free and take some control. Maybe Mal could have been a nice character. It would be shrouded in mystery, and it could have paved the way for us to learn more about him. And even during All-Stars, if at least we had seen him develop feelings for Zoe, like say her athletic skills are actually something that Mal feels impressed by, and how her sweet attitude and innocence is something he understands why Mike loves about her, then Mal could have been salvaged. But as it went, there is almost no redeeming qualities in the characters this season, especially Mike, Mal, and Zoe. And after all this, I conclude my 10-year-long rant on Total Drama All-Stars. Is there any good in it? Well, kind of. After rewatching this season, I find it really hard to find any good left with it. A thing I've actually never praised with Total Drama All-Stars is the inclusion of extra clips referring to locations previously traveled in Total Drama World Tour. I wanted to include this somewhere because I never did. But other than that, there is something more I want to say. We are in 2023. We are currently between seasons of Total Drama, and back when I made this review in 2019, I did not have this kind of reference to go by. And if anything, Total Drama All-Stars serves as a way of how not to write a season. But making this whole video had me thinking, how can we as a community help prevent an All-Stars from ever happening again? How can we stop the darkest days of this franchise to ever coming back? How can we avoid an era of having a franchise that has a fandom that is not invested in said franchise? How can we prevent the sending of this apathy to the creators and broadcasters of Total Drama and avoid it from ever being translated into the wrongful message that maybe what we would like to see is Total Drama Rama? How can we avoid a Total Drama reunion and a Drama Total Aventura from happening in an illegal way that would make the legal team of Total Drama shut down a love-filled fan project? How can we as fans give the message that this newer season is what we want? Well, we can stream it. We stream it as much as we can. Show that we appreciate this show and the new way it's heading into. There is a reason why I never tell you where you can watch this season, and any comments showcasing illegal ways of watching them get deleted. Because if we watch it illegally, neither the network nor the creators will get the message that this is what we want. We took Total Drama for granted 10 years ago, and our lack of care is what caused Total Drama All-Stars to be Total Drama All-Stars. Our lack of care is what caused Total Drama-Rama to come. It's what caused the years of silence. It's what caused Total Drama Reunion. It's what caused the Drama Total Aventura. It's what caused Heller and Alejandro. Even if the cancellation of these fan shows were a bitter pill to swallow, in a way, I feel like our voices were heard when we stood up and said we wanted more Total Drama like these fan shows were making. And even though it's never made clear that this newer season is taking place on the exact same island we were all when it began, I have to wonder why they brought back the island with little to no contest. Could it be that even the creators are trying to forget that All-Stars existed? This all happened because we stood together and made our voices be heard. We are slowly entering into a chapter with the Total Drama franchise, and if the quality of this newer season is anything to go by, then it means we are heading into a more positive way. So the lesson of this video is quite simple. If you love something, you need to nourish it. Because when you don't nourish it, you might end up with a final product like Total Drama All-Stars.
Never take anything for granted.